Hi everyone, Messicoder back again with another live dev interview, this time with Ludiq, the creators of Bolt, the visual scripting tool for Unity like no other. This was taken from my live Twitch stream, all the w's.twitch.tv/themessicoder, where I interviewed Ludiq back in May 2019. At the time of this interview, Bolt 1 was out and Bolt 2 was available. If you already purchased Bolt 1, you could go over to Ludiq website and download the alpha version. Still there now if you want to go over to Ludiq's website and get it if you already are a customer and have purchased Bolt. If you haven't, well, what's stopping you? Watch this video and afterwards ask yourself the question, do you want to make a game without writing a single line of code and for it to be awesome? Of course you do. Sit back and join. I'll see you all in a second. Everyone at home around the world, sitting in front of your TVs, your monitors, your laptops, all this nice little Bolt shiny thing. Let's give a warm and messy welcome to Laszlo from Ludiq, creators of Bolt visual scripting for Unity. Welcome, buddy.
Hi, thank you.
Well,
thanks for having me.
No problem. I am acutely aware that while you've never watched one of my shows, I've never played with your thing either. So we're equally naughty.
Exactly. I mean, I would say equally busy, maybe.
No, yeah, well, I like it. I like it. It's good.
Yeah, let's phrase it like that.
I would like to point out that on the asset store, your page for Bolt, you've got a lot of text. There's a wall of text in there, which is always a good sign. Whenever I'm looking to purchase an asset, I'm like, how much have they written on the shop page to really describe what they've got? Really, how much effort did they put in that shop page? And you've not only got a wall of text, you've got bullet points, and I love bullet points.
Right.
Fantastic.
I'm so happy that they let me put bolt emojis in there. Not all emojis are supported in the asset store description, but apparently the lightning bolt one is. So I just got lucky.
Oh yeah, look at that. I think that's
Yeah.
Is that just a generic lighting bolt that you've stolen as your logo?
No, I made the logo so it has both the lightning bolt and the nuts and bolts bolt. If you know what I mean. I don't know how to explain that.
It leads to a very good question. The name.
Yeah.
Now we hosted somebody yesterday after the stream, and I said, "Hey, we've got creative of Bolt coming in the stream tomorrow to have a chat," and everyone who's old like myself goes, "Oh, Bolt, that photon thing."
Right. Yeah, I did have to apologize to him. Callum, that's the creator of Photon Bolt, if I remember correctly, that's his name. And back when I first started Bolt, I did not do the basic Google/asset store research for it, so unfortunately I didn't see that name. Yeah. And I felt really bad for just like jumping on the same ship, but there seems to be no confusion anymore. I mean, people make the mistake for the first 5 seconds, but then there's still Photon Bolt and then the just Bolt. So yeah.
So
I didn't do my
so you're friends now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because we've talked about making sure that the asset works. Like if you have both Photon Bolt and just Bolt your project, we don't want like any namespace conflict.
Exactly.
We just want to let people use both the assets. And I had used Bolt in the past, and it's a wonderfully well made asset. I mean, not my Bolt, they're old. And it's just that's gonna get confusing very fast. But no, it's really a wonderful networking asset. I think the user experience is fantastic in there. You can just like get something up and running in 30 minutes, whereas just going with the basic Unity libraries would take you days. So yeah, that was a great experience. So yeah.
Now, I love that while we're even talking about it. Like, not my Bolt, his Bolt. even the confusion right. As we're chatting about it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I do have to ask the question. Like you said, like you didn't do the background research of the names coming in, but makes me wonder how much of a working experience did you have with Unity before you jumped straight into being an asset store developer yourself?
Um, so before I started developing assets, and that's a good question. I think the first asset I made was Kronos, which was a time control asset, um, and I actually made that asset pretty fast, pretty soon after I started just opening Unity for the first few times. I was working on a tower defense game back then, and I needed a time control effect for one of my towers. I wanted to slow down the enemies or the players, or like some different groups separately. And I realized there wasn't an easy way of doing that with the Unity timescale. So I started writing a library for it, and kind of grew bigger and bigger. And I started giving it some polish. And I thought, hey, I could try that asset store thing and see if there's people interested in an asset like that. And surprisingly, there were.
Oh,
I was
nice.
kind of surprised by the reception. I mean, it was really kind of a niche thing, right? Because not everyone makes a game that's is about time control, or like the Prince of Persia's and Braids and games like that. So I thought it would be like 2 or 3 people downloading it, and that would be it. But no, it really kind of picked up. And yeah, I realized you could make a living out of being on the asset store. So my next logical step was, what tool do I really want to see, and I would really want to use, and that would have been a really good visual scripting tool. So I mean, to answer your question, I guess before I started making tools in Unity, I had used it for 6 months, a year. But now it's been, I think, for 4 or 5 years that I've used it overall. Yeah.
That's a huge leap to go from, I have to say, this cool time control physics support, it says in there as well, like that, slowing down all these exploding shards, to go from that
Yeah.
into something so complex like visual scripting, Node-based
Right.
editor. I mean, that is
No,
that's just
it's
basically going from hello world to writing
right.
a massive book, isn't it? Like,
No,
Moby Dick.
that's a good comparison. Yeah. No, Kronos took, like, I think, if I remember correctly, essentially something like 3 weeks to code, from beginning to end, and then like add another month for just documentation and marketing and everything. I think like documentation is a big part of any asset. If it's not documented, if any feature is not documented, it might as well just not exist.
I love
And we
you.
kind of
I
yeah.
the fact that you're
So,
saying that it warms my cockles.
yeah, but we tend to forget or underestimate that, especially when we've been coding this thing for so long. We're like, oh, it works, so let's ship it. So Kronos documentation took a while, but all in all, Kronos was like a 2 or 3 months project, whereas Bolt, in terms of development, before I even announced it, or teased it or anything, was a year and a half to 2 years of full-time, sometimes double-time work. Really working crazy weeks. It's really kind of this beginner mistake of thinking like, oh, how hard can it be? It's just visual scripting. It's just boxes and arrows. It's just colors that you connect, and you kind of underestimate the sheer complexity of making sure that every feature in a language works, and making sure that every interaction that the user has is polished, and it makes sense and it's clear. So yeah, it took. I thought it would be a 6 months project. It was a 2 year project,
Wow.
and yeah, yeah. But I don't regret it. I mean, the reception has been amazing, and now it's been out for 2 years,
Is it?
and
It's been
a
two
year
years
and a half.
already. Wow.
I think it's a year and a half. I don't know. I have a very bad notion of time. But yeah, and
I
no, I
use
think it's
Google
two.
to
I
tell
think
me
it's
what
two.
time is. As you know, that me telling you that
Uh,
the stream's on the wrong time.
right. Yeah, no, time zones are hard. So yeah, no, it's been a while. And yeah, that's what I do. I do full time now. I also work with other people. I work with a guy called Hassan, who does our community and marketing management. I used to work with another programmer from uh, Tribute Games, who called Andy, who did a lot of work on the C# generation in Bolt 2. Now he's back to Tribute, making some more amazing games. But yeah, so we're a tiny team now.
So you're now you're the only coders, and you've got the rest of the marketing and the sport
I
guys, or you've got other coders with you.
pretty much know. Right now, I am the only coder. Up until weeks or months ago, we were two, and yeah, it's going pretty well. I think I'm gonna hire someone else soon, because there's just always so much work to be done. There's always new features that can come in. There's something to add. There's it's never done. It's not like a game that you ship and then you're done with it. It's there's always something better to add to it. So yeah, no, definitely another coder could come in handy.
And then Unity go and drop Unity 2019, and does that end up breaking everything that you've done before?
I mean, yeah, I do have a tricky relationship with Unity releasing new versions. I think every single version they released in the past 2 years has broken Bolt in a like core way
Really?
somehow.
Oh my word.
Yeah, and it's just like a race against the clock for me to start fixing bugs as soon as they come in, because a lot of our users are really like Unity enthusiasts, I would say. They just like playing with the newest version and the shiniest tools. So as soon as the new version comes in, they jump ship and they want Bolt to work with it. And sometimes, even I was testing Bolt versions on Unity betas, and by the time like it worked on the beta, and by the time they shipped the final version, it didn't work anymore because they had changed stuff between the beta and the final version.
Oh my
So
word.
no, it's really tricky trying to follow suit with Unity's pace of releases, but it's stabilizing now. So like as we speak, knocking on wood, Bolt should work on all stable Unity versions. It doesn't work on 2019.2 yet, I think, but that's because of a bug on their end, so it's not my fault.
Obviously.
So I
Goes,
mean,
goes
obviously it's
without
never my fault.
saying, of course.
No, but the bug is reported, so I'm waiting. I'm waiting on a fix, and yeah, so we'll see. But yeah,
My word. And how responsive are they when you actually find bugs in their pre-releases and you report them to them?
So I don't really have any kind of special channel to talk with Unity. I mean, it's something I think all asset store devs wish they had. But I just go through the normal bug report process and see. Um, yeah, it depends. I think the more time I spend really getting them like a perfect bug report where they can just open it, it jumps in their face. Like I can highlight. Sometimes I send them, here is the line of code in the reference source that has a problem with it. Here is the fix. And it's just something like they have to change. I can't do anything about it. So the better the report, the faster the resolution. But it's always something like 2-3 weeks, sometimes a month before I get a resolution in a bug.
Do you
Yeah.
ever get a reply back going, how dare you send me the fix?
No, but sometimes at some point, I don't remember what the bug report was exactly, but I had sent them the bug, the fix, and they were like, "No, it's not a bug,"
That's a
and I had
feature.
to, I had to really insist. It took ages just because it had to escalate, and like after a few months, someone and the Unity QA team was just like, "Yes, it is indeed a bug," and he has sent us to fix like 3 months ago. Like, why did we just change it? It's a one-line change, and it got implemented. Now it works. But yeah,
Oh,
it's
wow.
no, they weren't. No, they weren't insulted ever. I think you know speaking from the point of view of someone who gets a lot of bug reports every day, I think the more precise someone is, and like if they can tell me this is the line in your source that has a problem, and if you just change that, it works. I love you. Like it's thank you. You just saved me 3 hours of trying to understand why that bug happened or how I can fix it. So I'm guessing it's the same for them.
That leads to a question I
For
was going to
Unity.
ask you very nicely. Thank you for that. What are you? How do people contact you for support? And do you use any special ticket management tools like Redmine or
Um,
anything like that?
So what we use for support is something called a user echo. It's just a forum software, and we use it for questions and bug reports and feature requests and sharing tutorials, sharing some of the macros that people make. So it's an all-in-one kind of forum, but it lets us really kind of track and filter by the status of the bugs and everything. It works pretty well. Yeah, I've been using that for a while now. Maybe I can paste the link in the
Oh yeah,
Discord
if you
somewhere.
paste on Discord, I'll stick it in chat.
Right.
If you've added yourself on Twitch, if you made yourself a Twitch account, I warn you in advance. It is not a bug, it's a feature. If you try to paste a link, it will ban you for a second.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So I
but
won't do that on
stick it in the
Twitch, but
Discord. Yeah. Shove it in there.
Uh, I'll just link Bolt forum on Discord and live dev questions. So here it is.
Fantastic. And actually, Fresh Meat, being the wonderful badger that he is, he's our super mod, says, what made you make Visual Script? You said earlier that, you're thinking about, what do I want? What should I work on next? I want to work on something I want. But you picked visual scripting, and to be honest, there were visual scripting packages out there, weren't there?
Yeah. And it's kind of a hard decision to go in saying, well, if I want to make visual scripting, I have to consider what there is already, and do I think I can make something better or that fits a different audience, or that, is it worth it for me to spend all that time? And back then I was working on a game on which I'm still working in parallel, and I was working with a 3D artist and animator, and she needed to do some of the logic in the scenes, so we needed a visual scripting tool, and back then we had used back then Bolt didn't exist, of course, and we had used I think it was Flow Canvas in the asset store, or Node Canvas, either of them, which were very good tools, by the way. And I just thought to myself, this works very well. Like, these tools have a lot of features, and they can really they can do an impressive amount of things. But I remember seeing the artist I was working with kind of struggling with the UX and the general user experience, the UI, and kind of getting used to it from a designer and an artist, like a visual thinker point of view, because it was still very technical, it's still very gray. And I thought, there really is kind of a missing, there's a gap in that market for something that's really made to be extremely visually appealing, and that resonates with visual thinkers first, like that puts the user experience above everything else. And it kind of goes hand in hand with what I was saying earlier about documentation. But it's, if you have a feature, and you have a functionality that's there and that lets you create amazing things, but it's too complicated to use or hidden behind a menu, or if the workflow to get to it isn't just straight up perfect, a lot of newcomers to Unity, or artists or designers, are just going to miss it, or are not going to risk clicking on a button that they don't understand. So really, I thought I went into making Bolt with the premise that I want a visual scripting tool that focuses on the UX, and that was how it was going to be different from the rest of the tools in the asset store. And then, of course, as it grew, there's a bunch of factors, I guess you could say that make us different. But that was the initial mindset back then. Like, in all honesty, I wasn't really happy with the solutions that were there. They were never satisfying to me, so I thought I should try, and I did.
And that's what gave birth to Bolt. I was going to ask you a question. I was wondering, how can I phrase this question nicely without getting slapped? Because it's a question that I asked myself when it first came out, and other people have asked me. They've asked me on YouTube and on Discord, what is the difference between Bolt and Playmaker? I mean, everyone comes like, I've already got Playmaker, so why should I buy Bolt?
Right. I think the main difference between Bolt and Playmaker is really the kind of I think it's okay. So someone explained it very well. I think it's a metaphor that they used in one of the early reviews on Bolt, and I think it's very accurate. They said Playmaker will give you little cakes that are already baked for you, and that's amazing because you can go really fast. And if you want to make a pastry plate that has these cakes on it, well, you're set. It's going to be really fast. But if you want anything that's kind of out of this range, that's not within the cakes that you have, well, you're kind of stuck with those cakes. You can't do anything else. And they said Bolt is more like, we give you the eggs and the flour and the sugar, and make your own cake. But then, of course, it's a bit more of a learning process. But once you get the gist of it, you can make any cake you want. So Bolt it starts at a bit of a lower level, and it has a bit of a bigger learning curve. I'd say that people, usually pick up within 2 weeks, approximately, is what I'm understanding. But then once you get past that point, you're really not limited by anything, because Bolt lets you do literally lets you use every property, every field, every method, anything in the Unity engine, anything in your custom scripts, anything in the third-party asset that you imported, it's all there. Whereas in Playmaker, you won't have, because the actions and the nodes that you can use are maintained by Hutong Games. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Then you have access to only basically the nodes that they decided to maintain and they decided to support. So which is why you see a lot of these Playmaker integration packs on the asset store, where an asset provider will provide the integration of their asset with Playmaker. Whereas with Bolt, you don't see any of these packs on the store, and it's not because Bolt isn't compatible with them. It's just that it's because it's compatible with them out of the box. You don't need an integration pack or anything. You can just drop the asset in, and Bolt will recognize that it's there and give you options and nodes to use it.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of a very different approach at the core, where Bolt analyzes what code there is and lets you use that in graphs, whereas Playmaker is more, we will create high-level nodes for you and maintain those, which can be really fast to get started, but it's more limiting in the long run, I believe.
I'm glad that you said that it takes about 2 weeks for people to get to grips with Bolt, because Fresh Meat was asking the question that I myself was about to ask you as I load up Unity in a second. Is it because you say, you can make a game without writing a single line of code, but can an idiot like myself use it? Because as beautiful and as wonderful as something could be, if I have to be a clever badger and not a complete noob, then I would be out of my element. But if a complete noob like myself can use it, then I'll be a happy little badger.
Yeah. I mean, I think the kind of thing you have to be aware of is that regardless of the solution that you choose for visual scripting, whether it's Playmaker, whether it's Bolt, whether it's anything else in the store, whether it's Blueprints on Unreal, there is no way that the engine is going to make the game for you, right? You still have to.
You mean the magic make my game button?
Exactly, right? The tools menu, and then you choose a genre, and you're like, okay, single player RPG and roguelite, and then you just pick the options, press make the game, and it works. That doesn't happen. Bolt isn't going to do that for you, and neither is any other tool. So a lot of it is kind of trying the basic mindset of trying to understand how does a computer think logically. Like in which orders do things happen? Like if I have an event that happens, how do I react to it? So there's some kind of basic logic that you have to get into, and there's no way around this regardless of the tool that you choose. So which is why I say it's fair for anyone to plan a week or two to get used to Bolt or to any other visual scripting tool, really. And I think it's just a skill that gets acquired like anything else. And we'll dive in a project and kind of see for ourselves, but really the best way of learning anything is just going through the tutorials that are out there. So we have plenty of 101 from the basics tutorials for Bolt, like assuming you've never coded, never seen any line of code in your life, assuming you've never touched any visual scripting tool before. We have these tutorials that really get you started slowly and gently, and I think that's the best way to start.
Lovely. I like the fact that you're going to hold a noob's hand like myself and walk me through. I'm sharing my screen with you on Discord, by the way.
Are you okay? Yeah. Great.
So I'm just showing up. Make my MMO button. Yeah, you need to make my MMO button. Dragon Rift saying he's apparently banned from Bolt's Discord channel. Oh dear, Dragon Rift, what have you done? He says, I love Bolt. I use Kronos too. I'm a banned fanboy. Sad face. Oh dear. Maybe okay. You shouldn't be posting on the Bolt Discord about, I don't know. I don't know what you did, Dragon Rift. But apparently you're talking about Brexit. Maybe you spoke about Brexit and they banned you. So I loaded up an asset, basically a project, and I stuck Bolt in.
Yep.
And it came up with this Bolt setup wizard.
Yep.
And
Yeah, we can go through it together. So the first thing that you see right here is kind of like one of the tweaks that I wanted to add is human or programmer naming. And it's kind of like, do you come from a programmer background and you're more used to seeing, code, or are you, just getting started and you want things to be labeled in the way that a human can understand? So I would recommend for most users to go with human naming. It's very easy to switch at any time if you want to
oh, I like the
get
fact that I
closer to
can. So you're
programming.
not locked in forever.
No, for sure. You can change it at any moment. But for like new users or people who haven't coded before, I really recommend
All
human
right,
naming.
I'm clicking human naming. It says inspectors and Ludiq plugins
I would
can
just,
handle custom types besides Unity, primates, and objects. However, to be compatible with custom editor draws, some additional property provider scripts must be generated. Oh,
we can skip that for now. It's not really
so
important
just
for
click
anything we're
next.
going to do. Yeah. Same here for that screen. There's a long list of, basically this is where you would pick, if you had a third-party plugin or something like that that you want to be using with Bolt, you would add it to the list there, and then Bolt would generate the nodes for it. But right now we have a good default with pretty much everything in Unity, so we can just hit next. And same thing happens for this other section is if you want to get even more specific and choose which types you want to be using with Bolt. So we can see here that we have stuff like application and physics and time and random and anything that's a Unity object or stuff like that. So
Is there any
we can just
reason
leave
why I
it.
would remove things? Is it like a resource? Is it going to chew up all my memory by having all these things in, or?
So it is going to take up a bit of your memory because basically what we do is we keep all these options in memory so that you can search for them very quickly. But usually on any kind of modern computer, it's not really an issue, and you can kind of leave it at that and hit generate. So fair warning, this is going to take a while. This is only something that you have to do pretty much the first time that you open up Bolt, though. And afterwards, if you add new types, there's a faster kind of incremental options to regenerate them. But the first time, it really kind of scans everything that you have in your code base and analyzes everything to create options for them. So yeah, if you have any other question, we can go over that before while this finishes, because it takes a minute.
I love these custom windows that you've made. I've tried to I've tried, and I'm currently in a dark abyss when I'm trying to make my first asset for the asset store. And
Right.
since making my custom interfaces in Unity, I've really come to respect. I always respected and were in awe, but even more so now, of people being able to make these custom interfaces. Because I can't find any decent documentation for it. So how did you sit and learn how to do all this funky
It's
stuff?
just but you're right that there isn't really any kind of documentation. They tell you how to, like add a button and a
Yeah.
scroller, but that's pretty much it. And then you kind of have to figure it out. There are many ways to kind of peek into the Unity editor and look at what images and textures are available. But yeah, it's a lot of trial and error, a lot of just trying to figure it out. And after a while, it worked. If you're really curious about this, I can show you some hidden feature of Bolt right now,
Oh, lovely.
which I use to make the editor windows. So if you go into Tools menu,
Yep.
And go in Ludiq, and go in the developer last item right there. So that's
Okay.
my
Hang on.
little
People
playground.
can't see at home. So if I go Ludiq
Oh,
developer, there you go.
yep. And then you can see editor icons browser, the fourth one.
Yep.
So that will show you everything that's available in the Unity editor, and it's kind of one of the behind the scenes tools that I use to see
Oh,
like
yeah.
what can I use to make my interface look closer to Unity's interface. Because that's a big goal of Bolt, is trying to make it look like it was a native tool, that it was always part of Unity and really respect their design language. So I use that little window a lot. It's a script that I didn't create. That script, it was created by a user in a forum, obscure forum that was lost to the ages, I think 6 or 7 years ago, but it's incredibly useful.
Yeah, I think I've used a similar one. Although when I used a script to kind of do this, mine looked much uglier and had like little search boxes in and kept on corrupting and overlapping each other. This looks really nice
Oh,
and clean. This is lovely. Oh yeah, I'm nicking that.
yeah. So you can see like all the textures that were used for the nodes are right there at the bottom, and yeah.
Cool. So that basically is all I needed to do to get Bolt ready in a new project.
Right. Exactly.
That was pretty
Um,
painless, wasn't it?
yeah, but I mean, I hope it was. I tried for it to be.
So I'm gonna pop into that downloaded tutorial, the space shooter. A question that Bobman's
Oh.
asking, I love that is a brilliant question. Is Bolt being developed using Bolt?
No, it isn't. So it's a very, very huge C# project with thousands of classes and files across 6 projects. So no, unfortunately, it's not made with Bolt. I'm still, but like by trade, I'm a programmer, and I'm still very comfortable with C#. And yeah, it's something that I want to be let users do in Bolt 2, though, is give them kind of a hook so that they can create their own editor windows with logic that comes from Bolt. So you can create your own little tool windows within Bolt itself using visual scripting to create the logic of the tools. But it's not something that's in there yet. It's kind of my one of my plans for the future.
Are we going to get a little sneak peek of what you're getting up to in Bolt 2 before you get to head out?
Sure. I have it open for later. Here, yeah.
Right, so
All right. So, are you in the?
I'm in the project that is for the space shooter. So
Great.
if I go
So
to all of these, they should be. Here we go. Yeah, look, there's some
So,
power.
let's just make sure. Can you make sure that you don't have Bolt in this project? So the example that you downloaded, it comes without Bolt, so you'd have to import Bolt in this one.
I didn't put Bolt in. So should I?
Yeah. Because all the assets are already there. Like this, the graphs are created, but they need Bolt to run.
Aha! I noobed that up, didn't I?
No, it's okay. It's not very intuitive. It's definitely not your fault.
Because it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? That you wouldn't actually include to download the full because it would be massive. I'm an idiot.
I mean, it wasn't so much of that issue. I mean, now it's not so much of an issue because we have a kind of a password protection on the website. But before, if we were just to share our examples online, then if we included the assets inside them, then nobody would buy it. So that would have been a problem.
You can get it for free.
Yeah. So that's probably going to change. We're gonna we're looking into how we're gonna redo and update our whole tutorial library for Bolt 2. And now that we have password protection, is probably going to be in by default. So you can just hit import and go through the same kind of process that we had before. Sorry about that.
That's cool.
Should have warned you in advance.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Dragonwave's asking, will Bolt 2 be able to code things for SRP?
That is a good question. I have not looked into SRP at all. Honestly, the answer is I don't know. If it requires extending classes, probably not. Although I guess you could write some kind of a wrapper and then let you that calls Bolt graphs and use that logic in Bolt afterwards. But really, I don't know. At this point, I'm just guessing because I haven't looked into how SRP is coded at all yet.
Jim's got a question he's posted on Discord, exclamation mark Discord for everyone in chat. How was the experience of being in the Essentials bundle on the asset store? So that was quite an honor to get put into that, wasn't it?
Right. It's interesting. I was talking to Andrew, one of them. I think his title is lead marketer at the asset store. And so basically, we're part of the Essentials and the beginner bundle, if I'm correct. It's cool that they try to put these together, and it's really nice because they also asked us, what kind of assets would we see working well with ours, and I think they did that for every person, every company, and every asset in the bundles to make sure that they kind of play well and help complement each other. But yeah, no, it's great. Not sure what to tell you.
No, it sucked. I hate being in the Essentials. Did you see an increase in sales?
I did from the bundles a little bit. I mean, the core of sales for literally all asset developers, they will all tell you the same thing. If you haven't done the show before, they probably told you already. But the core of our revenue really comes from these massive 50% sales that the asset store has once a year. So like the May Madness sale that was happening a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and these Christmas sales and Black Friday sales. So I think a lot of the people are holding up until they can get these crazy good deals like they would on Steam for games. So that's when we really see an increase in sales. But the bundles don't really change that much on our end. I think it's a good deal for people though, because you get I think it's 30 or 40% off the bundle by default at any time, not just during sales. So that's pretty good.
Does that stack with the sale? So if it's in the sale and in part of the bundle, do you get even more?
I'm sorry, you cut off for a second here.
Yeah, because Unity's using all my CPU. So if your assets in the sale and you're part of the Essentials bundle, is it then like a stacked discount? So you get like your 50% off, and then the entire bundle is again 50% off.
No, I think the way it works is that you get the biggest discounts of both. So I think the bundle was 55% off during the sale, and Bolt was 50 by itself. So if you got the bundle, you had 55% off Bolt, not 50. I remember that's how it worked. Yeah.
So you didn't get 55% off the 50% reduced price.
No, that would have been pretty cheap.
Yeah. That would have been a great bargain for everyone apart from yourselves. We sold 10,000 copies of Bolt and we made $50.
Yeah, and we do need to make some money in order to pay rent.
So, it would be nice to pay rent. Well, you mentioned earlier about blueprints. Have you played about with Unreal and their blueprint system to see what worked well and basically to nick ideas?
Yeah. Truth be told, I am a total Unity fanboy. I don't really like Unreal. I have with their UX in general and their interface. So no, I didn't. I mean, I opened it once, out of curiosity. But I really couldn't wrap my hand around it. I think I got what I needed to understand from the screenshots, but I really don't like opening Unreal.
So it's more of a case of it gives you examples of what not to do rather than what to do.
I think Blueprints is really interesting because it's the not the oldest, but really kind of the grandfather of a lot of visual scripting systems. It inspired a lot of visual scripting developers around the world for the overall basic structure that we take for granted of having a horizontal control flow and horizontal data flow with these boxes and these ports. We just assume this is normal, right? But it's only normal because Blueprints did it and made it popular. For instance, I think there was an asset. I think it was UScript that had they had the values, like the variables, they were vertical or something like that, and it was so original because it derogated from what Blueprints kind of had laid out for everyone. And actually in Bolt 2 we're kind of moving from that Blueprints inspired layout, and we're making our control flow be vertical and our data flow be horizontal. I know that's kind of abstract right now, I'm not seeing anything. I'll show you later, but basically the end result is a lot less spaghetti code, more spaghetti graphs, and it's crazy because it's something that we hadn't questioned until very late in development, just because we assumed Blueprints did it that way. That's probably the way it should be done. And when we did, we were like, wow, it's so much cleaner. Like, why didn't we do that before? So yeah, I think Blueprints was inspiration for a lot of people.
Cool. We got basically Dragon Rift saying, I used UE4 until I experienced Bolt, and now I will never leave Unity. So it's an amazing comment to say.
Well, thank you.
Why haven't Unity knocked on your door and said, here's a load of money, come and live inside the Unity house?
So that's a very complicated question, and
one day your lawyers say you're not allowed to answer.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a few NDAs, but roughly, I think what I can say is that we have talked at some point in the past, and for various reasons, it didn't really make sense. They were already developing their own in-house visual scripting tool that was different from Bolt, and it would have wouldn't have made sense to kind of for me, having just released Bolt, to drop the support, drop the customers that were there, that, you know, everyone who was very enthusiastic using the tools, and just going like, you know what, this is not happening, and I'm going to work at Unity now. So I decided not to do that and keep on going with Bolt on my own and independently. And it kind of works out in the end, because Unity's visual scripting tool, what they're doing right now is focusing on ECS and dots only, whereas Bolt will be the kind of mono behavior slash classes and OOP approach to scripting. So we're kind of going in very, very different directions overall. And yeah, I think we won't be playing on each other's lawn, really.
But I would love that you touched on that, because I was going to try and sneak that question in without trying to work out how to not make you poke me or slack.
Oh no, for sure.
By saying, hey, you're making Bolt, but they're doing their own thing, so why don't you just, you know, close down? It's one of those questions that people are always asking, is like the previous question of, why should I use Bolt if I already have Playmaker or Flow Canvas?
Right.
And then people saying, well, why should I use something somebody has made who don't work for Unity when Unity are making their own version? And it's one of those strange questions, because the asset store is full of assets that I've made to bridge the gap where Unity haven't.
Yeah. Or even in features that Unity does support, you know, like for instance, there's Gaia for terrain, but Unity already has a terrain engine, but just Gaia is amazing in so much superior in so many aspects, because there is a team of devs that's dedicated to that one specific subset of a feature to Unity, whereas in Unity, terrain is part of a bigger engine, and they have limited resources to allow to that. Or something like Odin Inspector, which is an amazing asset for the inspector, completely changes how you design your classes and how you deal with the inspector window, and that asset is thriving even if there's already an inspector in Unity, of course. So I think there's really room for like passionate and dedicated teams that really want to like focus on a specific feature of the engine and push it further and offer that to people on the asset store, and that's definitely what we're going to do. But as I said, even if it wasn't for that, at the core level, we're just not going to be doing the same product. Unity really is going to be like their visual scripting tool. It was announced recently. It wasn't the plan initially, but recently it was announced that it's only going to support ECS and dots, which is a very, very still experimental and kind of specific way of coding. Whereas Bolt will be the I don't really like saying legacy, because it seems like it's dead already, whereas it's probably going to last for about 5 to 10 years still. But the current architecture of Unity with components and mono behaviors and every kind of tutorial and resource that there already is out there, Bolt is going to work with that, and not with the kind of future version of Unity that's slated for like 5 to 10 years from now.
Brilliant, fantastic answer. I mean, you're making everyone who's got Bolt at home feel very secure and safe, and everyone who was thinking about getting Bolt know that they've got to have a nice massive party waiting for them as soon as they pick up a copy of Bolt! Exclamation mark Bolt in chat.
Sure.
Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Tell me.
No, I was gonna say, if ever if ever people have more question about this, it's kind of like a long topic, and it's something we get a lot of questions about as well. And it's normal. People are just, should I invest in that tool? But we have a blog on our website. I'll post a link in the Discord, where we just really kind of have a fact about like what was the deal with Unity's visual scripting, what's the deal with Bolt, and I think it answers everything we could possibly answer. So I'll leave that in the chat in case someone's still curious.
Brilliant, much appreciated. Now I'm confused as to how to find my Bolt window.
Sure. Okay. Let me pop that full screen.
Yeah,
I really am a noob today. I'm having trouble with Discord and Twitch, and cool. Okay.
So I went to the tool. Hang on, let me go and click that. So tools, Bolt, and there's a load of things down here. Usually I like clicking things.
you're not going to find it there. It's under window, and it's the first one. It's called
Ah,
Yep.
oh, I saw that and I was like, I don't remember seeing that before. So
Yeah. And yeah.
does that make it a little bit cheeky in that you're saying, hey, it's not in the bolt because we are now so native part of your Unity experience. You shouldn't even think of me as being inside a bolt folder.
I mean,
I live here.
that was kind of the intent, really. Like that was the goal of it. And then Unity started. So in starting Bolt 2, we're going to be in under window/bolt/our windows. But in Bolt 1 right now, which is at the top level. But we're trying to follow like their standards, which aren't always clear. But it felt like because it was a window, it should be in their window. I'm not sure. Yeah.
It makes sense to some. So yeah, it's good. It's all good. It's all gravy. Let's let Unity have their toys. So now I'm in this demo that you've downloaded from your website, and if I'm gonna just, without you telling me, I'm gonna guess that I go to. I ain't got a clue. Ludiq.
Go to scenes.
Saints.
And then there's Space Shooter. And
okay, so
that should be it.
So it's not, there isn't like a scribble object type thing that's created and then I drag it into the graph.
So the Space Shooter scene is really inspired from the Unity's Space Shooter tutorial, and we basically remade that in Bolt instead of C#. So if you have the scene view open, you can see it's just there. The slow flying spaceship with asteroids. But then we can kind of dig into how it's done and like what components are used, and how Bolt deals with all of that.
Oh, crazy! So as I say, this is the first time I've opened up a project with Bolt, and I'm clicking around things over here in the hierarchy, and I can see these things in the flow graph here, and I click on. So whenever I click on something that has, is it because it's the flow machine that here?
Yep, exactly.
And then this changes, and if I click on something else that doesn't have flow machine, it doesn't change because it keeps the last one.
Was there. Yeah, brilliant. And if ever you want to lock that to what it is, you can see there's a little lock icon right in the toolbar for the flow. So then if you switch your selection to something else that has a flow machine, it's going to stay there regardless.
And then I can have multiple, add another.
Yeah, you can add. It's not going to be in there. It doesn't let us do that, but you can add a window.
Cool. I can just add another.
Yeah. And then this one isn't locked, so it'll follow your selection. Most of the time, I would say that you're fine with one tab, and yeah. So, and also one thing you can do.
Why is it not visible on? I tell you. Everyone's at home going, we can't see what you're doing.
Oh.
And I'm like here going, la da 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 da, having fun clicking things. Da, 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 da. Okay. How's that? Is that
I'm totally not looking at Discord, by the way, but whenever, like, if you have questions, just leave it in the Discord and I'll answer whenever, I guess.
Fresh Meat has come in to say he's having a barbecue. No one's even acknowledged that he's here. And he's like, not even one hello. Ouch, guys. Hello, Fresh Meat. I hope you're enjoying your barbecue. We're distracted because we're playing about with toys.
Yeah, that's a good way of thinking of Bolt, I think, as a toy.
So for those at home who completely had no idea what I was doing, I'm just going to close these. Bye, ciao, bow. All right, so if I go to Window, Graph, and now we're saying here's the little lock icon. Now normally I would go here, add, and I'll add something, but as we've just discovered, you got to go back there, and then you can have another one. So I could have split screen and have multiple ones, and this here on the right hand side is the flow machine component, which is defining our little flow. So I'm just gonna
You know, I realize now watching someone else play with Bolt, and I'm knowing and being very much aware that the version in the store is super stable, but I'm worried that any second it's going to crash the desktop and have a horrible error. It's very it's something looking at someone else play with your tool in live with live viewers. And you're like, wow,
I
I
have
hope
to warn
everything
you,
goes well.
you've not seen the stream before. There's a running theme. This is, I think you are the 62nd interview you've had on the show now.
Wow.
And as
Oh,
Boban says, Messi breaks every asset. There hasn't been a single interview or single asset or single review that I've done. So we've done about 60 odd, more than 60 interviews, and I've reviewed on YouTube more than 60 assets. So we could say on average, some of that is the overlap, but you can say about 100. I've played about with 100 assets so far in the Messi capacity. Every single one I've broken.
Okay, that's not reassuring in any way whatsoever.
So brown pants time, no, it'd be fine. Sometimes even when it's being shown not from his desktop, yes, that is so true. Somebody was sharing their screen, and the never before seen bugs had appeared as we were talking. Like, this shouldn't happen. You're like, well, my powers have come to you over the internet into your homes. So if you were worried before, I hope you're not worried now, mate.
Even more, even more.
So over here, this I'm assuming that all of this flow graph lives inside this macro called background scroller.
Exactly. You know what? I think it might be more interesting for us, instead of looking at a scene that already has all these things set up, kind of like create a new one and make it a cube, you know, like rotate or something from scratch, so that people kind of see like what the workflow is.
Would you like that at home? That's got me very tingly, I have to say. I loved looking at all those nodes, but I felt a little bit overwhelmed. So Goku's got a question, the same question that I asked with Playmaker back when I first got Playmaker. Does Bolt generate a C# script which I can sell later?
So no, it doesn't. In Bolt 2, in Bolt 1, we don't generate C# scripts at all. It all runs from memory. We have kind of like a very optimized reflection engine that powers it. But in Bolt 2, we want to like have the absolute ultimate performance. So what we do is we generate the C# script that then gets put through Unity's IL2 CPP. So what's really interesting about that is that in the end, whatever graph you make will end up being C++ in your build. So that's really cool, I think. And right now, it's been something that's been asked a little bit. Can I take that script out and sell it in the store, or whatever? And that's not something that's entirely possible yet, because even the scripts that are generated in Bolt 2 are still rely on some of the libraries that are in Bolt 2. So if you take Bolt away, then you're going to have some missing things. But since it's something that's requested a lot, I'm definitely going to look into how can we make sure that we don't rely on anything internally, and the script is kind of like a standalone thing that you can then sell by itself on the store or whatever. But definitely anything you make with Bolt in general, like your game that you ship, that you're free to use commercially, but not not redistributing Bolt, of course.
So with Bolt 2, as it's generated that C# script, and I go in and I start editing that script directly rather than via Bolt, then it won't be displayed anymore in the node graph editor, would it?
So basically, it's a one-way street. Yeah, no, it's a bad idea. It's a one-way street. All we do is take the graph, make it a script, and not read the script and make it back to a graph. So if you actually start editing the script and then make a change to the graph, your changes in the script are going to get overwritten by the new version of the script that the graph generated. So it's also something that's been requested. Can I go the other way? Can I just like paste the script and see the graph version of it? And that, unfortunately,
that would be awesome.
Yeah, but it's
because I could take all my bad old scripts that I've made where I'm stuck, and I'm like, and visualizing, go, of course.
Yeah, it would be something amazing. Like I definitely agree with that. just incredibly complicated for a billion reasons. It's because it means that every single thing in C# has to have an equivalent in Bolt. And while I would say like 90% of it works, there's a big difference between 90% and 100%. So that's probably not going to happen anytime soon, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to showing you what it looks like later.
If you did have that, if you had that, you basically would be able to just print money. Everyone would worship you, and you would walk the streets, and everyone would lift you on their shoulders and cheer your name.
Have a
Small children would look up to you. Oh yeah, you'll be a hero. Millions.
It's interesting because I think there's a lot of that value in this idea of going from script to graph for learning, but I wonder if there's a lot of value to it for actually producing and making a game. I think it's like, as you said, if you have trouble process something that you saw on the internet or like on a wiki or a Stack Overflow question, you would just like paste in Bolt and see what it looks like. That's very useful. But I don't know. I'm not sure it would be that useful to people in the long run for the idea of making their game. If they can write C# in the first place, then they probably don't need that much of Bolt at that level. So I'm not sure.
Can you call Bolt graph functions from C#?
Yes, you can. I can link you. Is that on Discord? I'll link you to the page. So basically, what you'd be doing is sending an event to Bolt. And it would Bolt would receive it and treat whatever data you send to it with that. Cool. And same thing, you can, if you have a Bolt variable or something like that, you can you can access it from C#. So I'm just gonna link those two things.
I'm very conscious of time that you need to be heading out soon.
Right.
So
Okay, so let's get into a small example.
I'm gonna add a component, and I'm gonna add graph.
Right. So
no, what's it called?
No. If you go from the root, you'll see a Bolt entry. Yeah, right there. Oh no, you were in the right place.
Okay.
So Bolt, and then you have flow machine, state machine, or variables. Most of the time, you want a flow machine. So just pick the first one. Flow is like what we call the equivalent of blueprints. Kind of like action reaction, these kinds of graphs. State would be something closer to what Playmaker does. So like, am I in a patrol state, a chase state? Stuff like that. But for most of the time, you just want a flow graph or flow machine. The difference here between so an embed, it means that the graph will live inside that flow machine itself, like inside the component, which is convenient because, as you see, it's just already there. It works. But the inconvenience is that you can't reuse that graph in another flow machine after. So most of the time, you'll want to create it inside a macro, which lives as an asset in your project, just like a script would, like a C# script. And then you can reuse that in multiple flow machines if you want. And yeah. So if you notice in that project, that Space Shooter project, we had a macros folder where all the macros that we use in the examples were located. So messy test. All right.
There was all yours, and here's mine.
Cool. So I guess one thing that you could maybe do right now, I think what's really cool about Bolt also, and I kind of want to showcase with that is, can you drag your game window to be on the side so that we can see the graph and the game at the same time?
Left or underneath? What do you want? Here?
Left would be great. Yeah, awesome. So now let's add to your object. Let's give it a mesh filter so that we can see what's happening to your.
Make a.
Oh yeah, a cube.
Cube.
Yeah. Then you can probably just go back and add your. Do the same thing we did before. So add a flow machine. Or cut it from, paste it from the other one.
A line review. Wonderful. That's better.
Great.
So do I need my flow machine on the cube then? My flow.
You don't absolutely need to, but for that example, it would make it a lot. So you can just hit copy component from the little cog there. That's not going to work, unfortunately. Yeah. What happened? Okay. Oh, it worked.
Yeah.
You can do that in Unity?
Yeah.
Wow, I'm learning things. Amazing.
And there's a boom.
That's
Got it.
really cool. Okay, great. So, so now that we have this, what I want to show is that let's just like start by hitting play. Like, let's enter play mode right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you're in maximize.
That's always
I
handy.
think you can. Yeah.
Yeah, you can go pause and then I will show that one that you just pause it, untick maximize, and then unpause it, and then it does it. Okay, so we've got this blue now, and
Yeah.
we're green over here.
Yeah. So it's blue because it means that it's happening. Oops, sorry about that. It's happening right now because we're in update. We're playing the game right now, so update is active. It's getting called every frame. So when you drag an arrow out of it, you can start choosing what you want to do. And here, what you see in that unit menu. Unit is just the fancy word that we use to say node, but it's the same thing. So if you go in transform, you can see that you have any kind of function in Unity that you could potentially do to a transform ever. So if you choose you right over one, so rotate XYZ angle, yeah, perfect. So just click it, and as you can see, we're live in play mode, and we have this kind of arrow, so we see that every update we have a transform. And if you start entering values, wait, how much do you rate? Okay, so you were 90. That's maybe a bit intense. So start with something like so that's 10. Okay, and that's very interesting because you're like, wait, 10 is way too fast for what I want. You think like I want 10 degrees per second, right? But what's happening right now is that it's rotating by say 1 degree, not every second, but every frame, which is 60 times a second. So an easy way to fix that with bold is just you can just take the X angle port next to it, like the little circle, drag it out, and then you can choose per second, which is just a bit lower, right there. You have your mass over it. Great, and then that's a value that you can put per second. So that's 10 degrees per second now, or if you wanted 90 degrees per second, or whichever value you want. So now you have that, and you can kind of see live the change of that thing. And if you want to connect, say, that per second output to the Z angle, then you can reuse that value for Z. I don't know, or whichever.
Oh my word!
So now we're spinning on. Yep. So that's kind of like one of the things that lets you do that C# doesn't, is just coding while the game runs and experimenting with the game as it's playing. And what's really interesting about this is that's one of the advantages of having made your graph a macro, is that if you exit play mode, this is saved. You're not going to lose these changes. So you can really kind of make your game as you go along and always see the results live.
So it's basically, I've now just fallen in love.
I'm so happy to hear that.
This is because one of the issues that we've had before, and I can see it being relevant here as well, is that I did a small tutorial video for guys. What was the one that I did? Behavior designer, I think it was. And the problem was that effectively I did like a hello world example. Mm-hmm. And it was just my way of understanding how the logic of the system worked. Yet the equivalent of writing it in C# would have been like a couple of lines of code, and in 3 seconds you're done. Whereas it was like a 10-minute video of me playing about with nodes and things. And people were like, well, it's great, but you've just overcomplicated something that was so simple. Yeah, I can see that with like a small, like, oh, look at this, I've just done do a quick rotate, and you go, wow, okay, that was a one line of C#, and you've just, added a load of nodes.
Yeah.
But the difference being that when you're writing your code and you're doing it, you can't just be in play mode and you can change values, change the variables in play mode. Obviously, you could expose those, serialize those fields in the script, and say, okay, I'm changing the rotation, I'm changing the speed, or whatever. But I can't just now add a whole new node or drastically change.
I mean, let's do something fun. So we can even add events as we go. So if you click some on the background of your graph, add unit, and then go under events, go under input, and then choose on key, or do we have a collider? Yeah, sure. Let's choose on mouse down. The third one. Yep, great. And now if you just click the cube in your game view, you'll see on mouse down lighting up because that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yep. So what you can do now is drag out from on mouse down, and we're going to do something. What can we do? I mean, we can do kind of a hello world. Drag out from that. Type instead of having to go look in, like code base, and then which you could do. You could enter code base, and then go in Unity Engine, go in debug, and then look for log. But you can also just type log in the search bar. It's going to find it for you. So you can see the second one is debug log. So if you choose that, and right now you see it's warning you, it's orange because it's like, cool, but you have a log node, but what do you want me to log? And if you were to click the cube right now, it would error out.
It's red.
Yeah. And one interesting thing now that you can, sure, yeah. And
I'm just clicking red just go,
yeah, please do. That's what it's for. It's a toy. So if you want a normal string like hello world, you can pick string literal, the third one, and then start typing whatever you want. And then whenever you click the cube, you have in your console, hello Messi.
Here's my errors.
Yep. So that's it.
You can control third-party assets variables like dialog system for Unity or amplify shader editor from Vault 2. Really? Lovely. Yeah. That's what you're saying. It exposes everything that you've got in your project.
Yeah, exactly. So if you had like Amplify in your project, I don't know, in the Amplify API for setting a variable, I'm not sure how Amplify works exactly, but Bolt would just probably have a Amplify folder under its code base, and then you can just go look in there and see what you're looking for. So like obviously there's like so many things we can get into. Like Bolt is enormous. You can code pretty much anything with it, but I think that's a good kind of a very, very quick overview.
I want to, I want to say, oh man, it worked. No freaking way.
So yeah, the node stayed red because you had before, so we just want to make sure that you didn't miss it. But if you want to, like, you can hit clear errors in the toolbar, and whatever had an error will go away.
Oh my word, guys! Did you just? Oh man, I was like, that's not gonna work.
Well, that's kind of the cool part, I think, of like, if you're in play mode, it doesn't take like you don't have that, but I'm gonna have to wait 4 seconds for it to recompile, and is it really worth it experimenting with that? It's just like, well, I might just try it and see, and often it works. It's surprising.
But the problem is, this is and now we get down to my problem with visual coding.
Mm-hmm.
My problem with visual coding is that I've done all of this. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is awesome. But now I know how to do it inside Bolt. I don't know how to do it for myself. I've been given a fish, but I haven't been taught how to fish.
Right. So I think this is like the really good moment to transition to me showing you how Bolt 2 works. Also because we don't have a lot of time left.
I love that. So you see, it's like we almost planned it.
It does sound like that, but we didn't.
And I've just come out of play mode, and all of this is saved, and I love that. Because
definitely.
this is one of the things I love about scriptable objects as well is that you're mucking about, let's save it, baby. Scriptable object.
I mean, a macro is just a scriptable object in the background, so that's why it works. So I guess now I should share my screen.
Yeah, you show me. I've shown you mine, so you show me yours.
Oh, that's how it works. Okay. Turn on screen share. Entire screen.
Let me just make it big. Make sure you got nothing inappropriate showing, and we got Inception. So you can see myself within myself.
All right, so I had the space shooter open, but let's just switch to something. Whoa, okay, so I think my CPU is rushing a little bit with the Discord screen share on MacBook. All right, so here we are in the alpha version of Bolt 2, alpha 5. So this has a much bigger chance of just exploding while I'm talking because it's very unstable. But it's something that if you have Bolt in the asset store, you can already download this from our website. You have access to it. So if you want to play around and test, you can definitely do that. So let's try to do basically what we had before. So game object, 3D object, cube.
I do forgive you for using a Mac, by the way.
It's not my main development computer, but it's very convenient. I mean, as a guy who like good clean UI, I have a knack for Mac, I must admit.
It's interesting that you've got, because people that actually Unity first. I remember Unity only being available on a Mac and having to build a Mac on an Intel machine so I could use Unity back. I think it was like Unity 1.
Right.
And you've got people that use Windows, you've got people that use Mac, and you're having to build a system, visual scripting, that's going to work not only on different versions of Unity, but different Unities on different operating systems.
Oh yeah, and that's not the most fun part of the job, I must admit, because it means that it's not so much the different, editor versions, but it's also like, I have to make sure that it works on Switch and PlayStation, and the build is the hard part, making sure everything works flawlessly for everyone. But yeah, okay. So there's like so many changes from what you've seen already, and I'm much more excited about this version than I am about Bolt 1. I think it's because I've seen Bolt 1 for so long now.
I can't really see the right hand side for some reason. Discord's giving me a black bar.
Oh, is it?
So you might have to move your window slightly to the left, make it smaller.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
wait,
if you shrink it down a little bit and squish it to the left.
Is that helping?
Let Discord refresh itself.
You know what? Give me a second.
Wiggle your mouse about. See, this is, again, I have to say, there's a lot of Discord fanboys out there. Discord take your money. But come on. Microsoft break many things they've purchased, but they still haven't ruined Skype completely. How complete in percent? I love that, point ball. How complete in percent is Bolt 2?
That's a good question. High point.
It's like he's your boss and saying, "Give me the."
So it's really hard to tell because the one missing feature is also the biggest, and it's one I'm working on right now. It's adding classes to Bolt, and that's some kind of a thing that is, when you do project planning, you try to assign complexity to tasks, and this one is kind of the one you write as unknown. It's like, in theory, we have a plan, we have a design, we know going how we want to structure it, but in practice, nothing goes perfectly the first time you try it, so it's really, really hard to tell. But considering that that's the last feature and everything else is in, if you just count in terms of that, I would say 75%, 80%, but that might be optimistic. I'm not sure. Yeah.
How many story points?
I mean,
how many story points are left in your sprints? Is that...
that's kind of the question. And unknown is just like, it starts at 32, for each task. So that's kind of worrisome. So no, at this point we don't really evaluate story points, but we for the smaller features we do.
So do you use like agile project
So,
methodology?
well, right now I'm back to one developer, but back when we were two, we had something that was closer to Agile. I can show you if you want. Our just making sure it's going to pop on the right workspace.
Let me just
Uh,
swap the screen
and not
over
my
just in
secret.
case anything inappropriate comes up before.
The secret projects. So okay, yeah, you can switch over if you want. Well, you might have had
Right, so
our internal
am I allowed to show you what's on the screen?
Yeah, you can.
Cool.
I mean, for a second right there, it started on the screen with our planned Bolt 2 release date, which we're not announcing publicly. So it's a good thing that you switched the screen over. So this is basically our.
Hang on, I'm showing it now. I'm back in because I was showing that off. Now I'm showing back onto this. Hang on, tell me when I can show it again. Can I show now?
No, it's okay. You can.
Okay, good.
Sure, for sure.
It's like you've just shown all the secrets.
No,
oh
it's
my
fine.
god! Quickly delete the video.
So there's something really funny. Can I tell us this? So I have a friend, a colleague, who they were making a stream. It's a very, very popular streamer, and this person there. Oh, no, I can't say that. I can't say that. I definitely can't say that. Okay, so
you can't.
Yeah.
So you're about to tell us a funny anecdote about something highly inappropriate, and now you can't.
It's not appropriate. It's just it's industry secrets, I think. So I can't say that.
Oh dear. Distant Temples coming in with the biddies. Thank you. Fresh Meat's asking, did we cover your questions? Yes, we did, Fresh Meat. But you were making a barbecue, so you missed them. You'll have to watch the VOD. I'm sorry.
Okay, so wait. So I was just showing you the roadmap quickly. So that's the software we use. So you can see 2.0, we're in the last alpha right here, and we have.
That's a lot of completed.
Yeah, that's a lot of things, all the features that we implemented so far for 2.0. And so we're in the last stretch, really, but it's a big stretch. So we'll see. So I'll show you what would that look like instead of showing you the tasks for them, which is kind of boring. I'm really trying to fix my Discord. Wait, you know what? Let me just, I'll try to fix the screen. I'll be back in half a second. More screen just more screen share options. I think it's because I changed my Mac resolution actually. Default for display.
This is magic we've got going on at the moment. This is why you shouldn't use a Mac. I'm just gonna say. Just gonna put it out there. Now I'm an old Amiga fanboy, so I would never forgive them. And somebody asked me the other day, what if you're an Amiga user? Why does that upset you? Why don't you like Macs? Because we use the same Motorola chipset. Like, what? That's why you don't like Macs? Yes, we use the same Motorola chipset. Mac survived. Amigas died. I don't forgive them. That's it.
Wow. Yeah, that's fair.
And they only had one mouse when I used to use a Mac. You only had one mouse. So.
Wait, whereas in Amiga you had two?
No, yeah, Amiga had two mice, but a Mac only had one mouse. So I think Macs have got two mice, one button with one mouse, one button on the mouse. Yeah, two mice. That would have been weird. No, one button on your mouse.
Oh yeah, okay, that's what you meant.
Yeah. Do you have two buttons on your mice now with a Mac? Have Macs finally worked out that you can do multiple buttons?
No, you don't. But I'm using a separate mouse, so it's okay.
Oh my word! I've got 32 buttons on my mouse.
That seems that makes me anxious. So I really have to go soon. So I'll try to show you. So I'm in the kind of same test scene, but in Bolt 2. Can you see the full screen now?
Yeah, it looks beautiful. You've conquered the curse. Well done. So we've got the graft on the right hand side, as in the inspector. On the left hand side, we can see the graft itself. Start up.
So one thing you can notice right now is that everything is much smaller, and we're kind of like making sure that you get the most out of your screen real estate for people who have small screen and small resolutions like this Mac. So the nodes, it's like 3 times smaller than it was before. And one other thing that's interesting is that the arrow for the flow is pointing downwards now instead of right. And that what that means is that if I drag down here and type rotate. Like we had before, we have a much more compact graph now with snapping and everything, that lets you write your values on the left-hand side. So now, what were we doing before? Oh, per second. Yeah, that's kind of buggy. It's not quite there yet, but all these values, because they're now horizontal, I can type these inputs on a totally separate kind of axis than my control. So I'm never going to have crossing wires or anything like that, which really kind of makes a difference. And when I'm done with this action, it's kind of more similar to how it is in code, right? So you have every line of code being one horizontal entry. Then when I want to do something else, I just go down to the next thing and move on from there. So like maybe add an if. And this way, if I have an if now, which is called the branch and bolt, you can choose what happens if this thing is false. So then you would log, I don't know, something on this side, and let's duplicate that, something else.
So this is what I didn't understand until you told me about blueprints. Why everyone was going horizontal, because I'm from like if I'm looking from a UML background, UML where all of these kind of node-based, graphic-based stuff is basically coming from, is going down like this. It's vertical. So you always do your UML diagrams like this. You wouldn't do a massive like horizontal really UML diagram because it would be weird.
Exactly. And like in case you wanted that, we do keep like the kind of legacy option of going for a horizontal flow, but it really creates for more messy graphs, because then you're kind of fighting for data and control on the same axis, and it's kind of really messy. So I think most people will want to move to something like that. I'm really kind of holding off and telling you that like billion of new features that are in there. So like for instance, now you can just I don't know, like choose this item and drag along all this children with it, so that you can easily reorganize stuff.
Yes.
You can have so as you saw, there's like really intuitive like snapping, so your graphs can get really neat quickly.
Who was it who wrote in chat? Somebody said Boban saying I hate crossing wires, and that's the other thing about node-based editors, that people who are a little bit neurotic, things need to be snapped.
So I agree, and I'm one of these neurotic people, and the crossing wires is really a problem. And one thing we added in Bolt 2 to fix that problem is something we call proxies. So let's say I have this on-collision enter event, right? Enter. I'm sorry, my CPU is really rushing right now. So I have this event. It has a bunch of parameters like what collider I hit and whatever. And usually you'd have, let's just say like, I don't know, log the name of the collider.
I got a feeling I know what you're about to do.
So you would do that, and this is kind of annoying because now you have this crossing wire that goes this way. It's really not pretty. And actually what we do in Bolt is we have proxies. So we have this little node here that in the background is connected to that thing, but in practice, it's not visible. So you have this kind of like a variable reference that's created for you.
You've made a wormhole there.
It's these little Wi-Fi ports, so you can see the little Wi-Fi. And actually, to even make that into a cross-wire connection to begin with, I had to cheat, because Bolt will detect that for you. So if I go from my collider here and just drag it into my log, it knows it would be a crossing wire and just creates it as a proxy for you.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's kind of like all these little tweaks that we add everywhere to make sure that everything is like a really smooth workflow, and your graphs look really clean. And in the end, you really see the difference. Like looking at a Bolt 1 graph versus a Bolt 2 graph, you can definitely tell that one is cleaner than the other. And one last little thing before I show you the code stuff, which is why we're here, is this button here on the top right with a little cloud icon. It's something we added so that you can share a graph easily. So if I click it, in the background you see here it says uploading graph data, and what I'm going to do for this, I think, is just see graph data uploaded, URL copied to clipboard. So I'm going to go back to Discord in your live dev questions. I'm just going to paste that URL right there, and you can see now that you have a Discord link with the graph screenshot and that's buggy. It shouldn't look like that. It should be the full graph, but I'll fix that. And you have the C# code that was generated for it. You even have this thing which we call a clip. That's just a seemingly random bunch of data. But if I copy all that with Command C, and I just go back in Bolt and hit Command V, it creates this graph.
No way.
So now anyone on Discord could just have picked that up. I could just have been like, oh, you need to do, that one thing to rotate your cube. Well, let me do it for you, and then share it. And then the other person just has to copy paste into their graph, and
so you basically go, look, here is my problem that I've got. Here is my flow. Does anyone know how to fix it? Because we've got like a help channel in Discord, and then somebody will go, okay, hang on a second, copy paste. Oh, I see what it is, and then clicks the share button, puts it back in Discord, and the guy goes, thank you very much. I'll go have a cup of tea now. Here's a beer on me. That now
definitely
opens the door to so much customer support assistance.
Exactly. I think it's mostly like we know that we have a community of people who are really, really helpful, but it's kind of hard to tell people like, oh, well, just, like open the menu and look for this specifically and then connect this to that. And it's kind of like a complicated thing to go through. Whereas with code, usually what you just do is like, here, paste that, like, let me just copy paste it for you. And I think with this little clip data, it's going to be like this kind of easy sharing of like, yeah, this is what you're trying to do. Let me just do it for you and send it back over. And it's still an editable graph. You can just still learn from it and replace it whatever you want. But it's yeah. So that's one of the things that we've improved. So now let me show you this this famous code generation we keep talking about.
It was Dragonfly. Show me the preview. Come on, let's do this.
So it's not going to work because these things don't make sense. So let me just delete. Let's just. I'll just delete those and add them later. We have a new window now. We're neatly on. Oh yeah. Unity has a bug on Mac, so we have to do it like that. It's one of their bugs. Whatever. C# preview. So we have this screen here. Let me just dock that below. Move that over there so we have more room. So you can see now what we have, let me just delete that, is the C# for the graph right here. And what's really interesting, whoa, I'm trying to get more room, but it's not really helping me. Okay, whatever. What's really interesting is that you can, this gets generated automatically in real time. And you can click any of the items in there to see what part of the code it corresponds to.
Oh my word.
So if I'm clicking on rotate, you see it's that line of code. And if I'm clicking on range, it's that little bit here, which is calling Unity engine.random.range. And if I choose to add stuff to it, so like here, for instance, I'll add, I don't know, this log thing that we had before. Now it's buggy because it says, well, it's missing an input and it doesn't know how to generate the code for that. But as soon as I drag out, pick a string literal for it, it's back in there. So now we see that we have a branch that's always true. So if true, and then we go back in and it has debug log, and I can say hello, Missy, and here we go. That's it. We have this.
You go shut the front door.
And if I add a condition here, I don't know, it could be that. Let's go for greater, and then we can check that 0 is greater than 0. That's not very interesting. So let's go look at the x component. Oh, no, actually, that's interesting. So let's say I wanted to check the x component of position. So I would just type unit position, and then transform position. Right. So I have this thing, it's not connected to anything yet, which is why it's grayed out. And now I want the x component of that for my comparison. We want to make sure, let's say that x is greater than 0. But this is a vector and this is a float, and these two things are not compatible. So Bolt, when I start dragging out, it dims this node because it tells you like, hey, you can't connect a vector to a float. But if I insist that I really want something out of that, I connect them anyway, it's going to give me options that go from vector to float. Man. So here in that case, I could choose get x, and then it just inserted the x node in between the two other nodes. So it fixed that or figured that out for me. And then I can tidy up my graph, make it really cute. So now we have our if transform the position x is greater than 0, then log hello message, and we can just that's it. You just see the code as it gets generated.
And I can see that in my preview. There's nothing in there that are any dependencies on Bolt itself. So it's not actually using any Bolt libraries or anything. So I could just copy and paste that and just use that C# and it would work.
Yeah, like that you could, and that's kind of so for simple things like that, there's no problem, and that's what I'm saying. We're close from having it work, but it's when you start getting into more advanced thing like state graphs and having stuff like that, then yes, we do use some of our libraries in the generated code. So then it gets a bit harder to just paste it out. But that's what I was saying earlier, that we want to try to cut down these dependencies and make it exportable as much as possible. And there's also a bunch of like things behind the scene that we generate. So if I go to full code, you see we'll have like, our background code that we're generating for that. So unfortunately, we're still not quite there yet. But it's something that's definitely possible to envision in the future. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
That is awesome. Dragon Rift is pointing out, very rightly so, that it's showing C#, so you can learn C# while using Bolt, and it helps especially when using third-party assets that are not documented, or not well documented indeed. Going back to what you actually full circle as we come to the end of the stream, back to what you said at the beginning about documentation.
Right. I'm not sure if I have it generated in here. Maybe yeah, I do. Okay, so one of the things that Bolt does for you is it generates a documentation from every class there is. So if I choose transform in here, I actually get the Unity documentation, every one of those members right in there, like right in the fuzzy finder. So I don't have to open my Unity documentation in another browser. It's there. It's exactly right there, and that will work for anything that has these XML common documentations in C#. So if the third-party asset provider did that, then it's going to be accessible from here as well. Yeah, and in Bolt 2 it changed a little bit, so we can go look at tools, Bolt extractor. So that's the kind of wizard that you went through in Bolt 1 earlier. In Bolt 2, it's been redesigned a little bit to be easier to understand. So these are all the types that we're using, the namespaces that we're using and excluding. If we added third-party assemblies, we can add them there. So that's how you configure basically what types you have available for you. And one of the most common things that people want to use with Bolt is DoTween, which I'm guessing the tweening library.
Yep.
So what we did is we went ahead and we talked to Danielle, the creator of DoTween, and asked if we could integrate it at a very core level in Bolt 2, and he said yes. So now what you can do is actually, if we had this, add unit, and let's just say we like earlier, events was unmasked down, right, that we had. So unmasked down. What you can do now is take anything that would be tweenable, like any float, any vector, any rectangle, anything that would be tweenable in your entire code base, not even just Unity stuff, but like third-party stuff, your own scripts, and you will get a tween option for it. So for instance, if we go to the positions, we have set position, but we also have tween position. So if I click that, we have the whole DoTween library kind of built in at the language level for us. So we can say tween to, like 5 and Y over 3 seconds using a quad ease. I don't know. There's so many options here. Let's just say out quad. And then that's going to handle it for us. And, that's the kind of code that's a bit more lengthy to write, is more expressive in a graph format. So it really makes a lot of sense. And if you want to dig even deeper in those things, you can inspect that node and say, I would like the advanced mode. And then you get really the whole kind of DoTween library at your fingertips. So you can choose custom easing functions, get this all rewind and play in whatever units. You can choose to define your own, animation curve for the tween, so that you don't have to use the predefined options if you prefer. So yeah, it's kind of like all these ease of life features that we're trying to pack is everywhere.
And Bolt 2's coming
Yeah.
out next week?
Unfortunately not. Yeah, that's the thing. It's coming out when it's ready.
Um, and if I've got Bolt 1 and I've got my game that I'm making, I've 80% there, nearly
Yeah.
finished. You know, I've got the last 20%, which is always the last 20% is 80% of my work. And I'm going, cool, Bolt 2's then come out. And I go, you know
Yeah.
what? I'm going to upgrade my project to Bolt 2. What happens to all
So
of my existing flows?
So if you're just about to ship your game on the Android store, I mean, don't do it. Ship your game. But if you know you're going for development for still a little while longer, then there is no problem. All your graphs that you've created in Bolt 1 will still be compatible with Bolt 2. They will still keep their old horizontal layout, so they won't get all messed up because of the new vertical layout. And basically, they'll just run out of the box. Maybe you'll have some kind of like a wizard for a conversion or something like that. But so far, it seems like pretty much everything is compatible. You'll get some warnings. So, for instance, because we're changing the old variable system with the new class variable system, anything that's like one of the old variables that you use, it's going to show up as yellow and and like Bolt will warn you that, like, that's obsolete, but it's still going to work. Just Bolt saying, in a future version, it might not work anymore, and we don't encourage you to keep using that. So it's going to prompt you to, like slowly change some of the things that were obsolete in Bolt 2, but you don't have to if you don't want to. And you can go at your own pace. You can just start creating new graphs that use the new systems and keep your old graphs using the old systems. But definitely it's still going to be compatible. That's one of the big priorities for us, is to make sure that we don't break everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's fantastic. So, because I wanna play with Bolt, I don't want to have to wait for Bolt 2.
Yeah.
And I don't want
I
to
mean,
end up losing what I'm going to be playing about with now. Bolt.
so if you're really just playing around and not working on a game that you intend to ship or anything, you can just download Bolt to the alpha already on our website, and just the version I was playing in right now, that's not a development version that I only have access to. Like, everyone has access to this version. It's on our download page. If you go to the alphas, right there, and whenever we push a new alpha, you get all the new features that we added in that version in the change logs, so you can really kind of follow along with our development. But that's it. You just have to hit download, and you can start messing around with Bolt 2 today.
And as Wavy Eye is asking, so when you're using Bolt 2, the classes aren't going to break then later on, because you're 90%, so you're done, and then in the last mile,
Right.
everything that we're playing about with Bolt 2 suddenly breaks.
So the answer I have to give you is you never know. The answer I would like to give you is, in theory, it should be fine.
Big red exclamation mark! Do not use Bolt 2 alphas in production projects.
Exactly, and we are they're prone to breaking changes. That's what, in that, if for whatever reason we realize in Alpha 6 that there was something majorly broken that we introduced in Alpha 4, then we won't ship. Like, we'll fix it, even if it means breaking the graphs that were created in Alpha 4, right? Because we do warn everyone not to use those in production projects. So it hasn't happened so far, but if we had to go and break something that was created in the alphas, we reserve the right to do it.
Yeah,
because if it means shipping a better, stable product.
That's why you're inviting people to use Bolt 2 Alpha, I assume, is because you want them to be finding these bugs so that you can release a solid asset. Exactly. Not so that they can be using it to make a game while you're waiting to release Bolt 2.
Exactly.
We've got a quick question. I know you're leaving. So what about source control for graphs? And are there any merge tool in case of conflicts? So it's a great question.
Yeah, that's a complicated question. As far as setting up your version control system and all the ignore files and everything, we have a page on that, on like how to make sure your ignore file is set up well for all the where is it? I'm trying to look for it. Version control. All the like Git or whatever. But as to merging graphs and everything, that's not something that's really possible because of how graphs are serialized. Graphs are very, very complex things that are not necessarily linear, like a script, because it's not like, oh, you inserted something between lines 14 and 15, you inserted between new lines. That kind of doesn't exist in a graph. So you can't really merge graphs at all. So that's unfortunately just a limitation of visual scripting, I guess. Although we're making it very simple in Bolt 2 to just pick and choose your how you want your version control to work, but in general, you shouldn't account to be able to merge like a graph that two people worked on.
San, you're saying, hello, Ludiq. I've won 2 of your giveaways. Thanks.
Awesome.
There was one quick question I wanted to ask you. I know, as I said, you're leaving. Yeah. There's 2 amazing products that you can use in Unity. One's the collaboration tool from Unity, the Collab, and the other is Scene Fusion from Kinematic Soup. Now, I can immediately see with that share the possibilities of being able to have multiple people playing about with graphs simultaneously. So is Bolt or Bolt 1 or Bolt 2 compatible with Collab or something like Scene Fusion?
So that kind of ties into the previous question. Unfortunately, merging graphs is never going to be something that's going to work, I think. Or if it is going to be, I haven't figured it out magic yet. But if you
basically can take ownership. It's like I've now got the flag, so I'm the master on this graph, and then when they finish,
as long as
it then shares to everyone else's.
Sure. So that works as long as there's only one person working on a graph at a time. Given, like, you can be like, some people are working on some graphs, some people are working on others, and then you use whatever Collab or Perforce or Plastic or Scene Fusion or whichever thing that you prefer. That's still going to work. But if you're 2 people working on the same graph at the same time and you kind of want to merge your changes together, then that's not going to work. So it's just making sure it's kind of having good internal workflow. Even with code, a lot of companies kind of go in that route of making sure that not 2 people work on the same C# script at the same time. So as long as you communicate well and make sure you don't work on the same graph at the same time, you should be fine.
It reminds me of an office I used to work with. The guys that if you're working in a database, there was a soft toy, and whoever was working in the database would take the soft toy and put it on their desk. And they'd be like, I've got the soft toy.
You can't touch it anymore. Yeah, it's fine.
Who's got the toy? I've got it. Okay. No, I know not to touch it.
Well, that's before these like locks existed in software. You would just use a toy in the office. That's amazing.
Thank you so much for coming in. I know that you need to rush. Is there anything you want to show us under the bonnet just before you head off?
I mean, I wish, because there's so many things that we added in Bolt 2 and I'm really, really excited about all of them, but I don't have time. So I guess you'll just have to download it and try it for yourself.
You are allowed back. It isn't a one-time only. We've had people like Adam from Procedural Worlds popping in a few times. We've had Dogmatic from Aquas come in a couple of times. You are allowed back in if you want to come in before Bolt 2 is released to give us a little sneaky
That's something to consider. Or or maybe when I'm finally done with all these things.
Oh yeah, you can even bring some of the other guys from the Ludiq team and share the chat and have them.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure Hassan would love it. It's something to consider. We'll talk about it, I guess. But yeah, well, thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you for joining.
This was really fun.
It wasn't too nerve-wracking, was it? It was fun.
No, it was fun. It was fun. It's my first time being on a stream. I think it is.
You are going to need to tell me that anecdote offline, though. You have to.
Okay, I will offline. Can I? Maybe I will tell you offline.
Well, give me an exclamation mark Bolt in chat, everyone. We've got the man, the legend, the creator of visual scripting beautifulness is Mr. Laszlo from Ludiq. I didn't actually put a cooldown on the bolts. Everyone's spamming bolts in chat. I should have actually put a cooldown. Really.
Wow.
Thinking about it now. So you're just going to see in chat many links. Many bolts indeed. Well, it was my first time playing about with your beautiful bolt. I have to say, once I've seen it and what it can do, even spinning a cube, you've had me at hello world.
Well, I mean, I'm so glad that you got this from, just experimenting with it a little bit. It's really fun to see someone else play with it, so I'm glad.
Brilliant. I'll catch you next time you're back on. So when Bolt 2 is released in a week's time.
I wish. Until then, I'm just going to go back to my cave and code. So see you. Bye. Thank you so much.
Oh, my lovely man. Well, a disclaimer, it's not out in a week's time. Obviously, it's not out in a week's time. Just if anyone just walked into the chat and went, Bolt's out next week. No, Bolt 2 is not out next week. But it is available to download if you have access on the download section, if you're a customer of Ludiq, and you can go and get Bolt 2 from the downloads section of their website. Well, that was it for another live dev interview. I hope you had fun and enjoyed yourselves. You too can take part if you pop over every Fridays and Saturdays at orderws.twitch.tv/themessycoder, 9 p.m. GMT time. If you want to know what it is in your time zone, use Google. So don't forget to tell all of your friends and neighbours. If you do like it, click it. Till next time. If you want to see more of my crazy videos, click on the left side of your screen now. And down below, there's that big juicy subscribe button. And right next to it is the magic bell that if you click it, it will tell you if I've got a new video coming out. Till next time.